Was my mic off? Nice. Okay. So I literally did a sound check, and I guess when the mic, here's an engineering problem. There's a little on off button on the mic right here. I guess just touching it turned it off. I was trying to put a little cushion under the mic so it wouldn't make so much thumpy noise. But anyway, so I'm going to start over. Is that right? Sorry. Anyway, so you didn't hear anything. I just had the greatest intro of any intro of all time. And you guys, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There's no way I'm going to recreate that. It's because I did not finish my espresso. A pre show espresso is absolutely critical. All right, let's start this over again. What was Mayor Adams' big mistake? Biden adds $8 billion to the World War III fund, and Japan thumbs its nose at China. Those stories and more. The Monica Perez Show starts now. So let me tell you a few things really quick, quicker than I did the first time around. I'm going to ask for some audience participation, especially with the Eric Adams story. I fell into that rabbit hole this morning. I spent hours and hours and hours starting at the beginning trying to find this guy's deep state connections. And I think I have a almost unique take. I solicited some tweets for this one. I'm going to read those tweets. I think people did hit on where I was coming from on this too. I'm going to get to that story in a minute, but you can absolutely chime in, because if I miss something, that's okay. I am going to count on you to give me anything that I missed on the Eric Adams, because I was out of commission yesterday. I had food poisoning, which I think was because I was under the weather. I was a little stressed out. I couldn't beat the environmental toxins that I was experiencing in my food. Normally I have an iron constitution, but I was super, super stressed because my dog, who's almost 11. So, I had that sweet Delilah who died earlier this year. I mean, I had to put her down, which is the freaking worst experience. I cannot get more dogs because of that. It's a horrible experience. It seems unnatural. I don't know what's up with that, but that was a bummer. But I have such a really good, strong dog who is her companion, Samson, who's almost 11, but he's like rock solid. He just crashed over the weekend. I don't know if it's an infection or like a sudden onset autoimmune thing, but I had to rush him to the emergency room, a little doggy emergency room. He had to get little doggy blood transfusion. So I guess there are greyhounds that give blood. They have little greyhound farms where the dogs get, fanned by eunuchs and fed grapes that are peeled, whatever, by, a bevy of virgins. I don't know. Supposedly they're very happy, and they just give their super blood once a month. Anyway, so my dog had to get some of that, and boy, did he make a recovery. So I am really hoping and praying that this buys him a lot more time. But the stress, I think, just whatever, made me a little less able to deal with just whatever. Something I ate that was no good. And the last thing I will say is I am doing a book reading tomorrow. We're doing, I don't know where the book is, Mass Control, Engineering Human Consciousness by Jim Keith. That's a good one. I'm going to do a chapter tomorrow live. It'll be on the podcast Saturday for Saturday Story Time. And then I'm going to do another chapter on Tuesday coming up instead of the newsreel, because I'm busy during the day. I can be home by 2 and I can read the book, but I cannot do a newsreel. All right. I hate announcements up front. They're bad form. Sorry. I just had to get it all out there. Plus, I'm a little behind in the news because I was out of commission yesterday. So I'm going to ask for your help. Don't let me forget anything. All righty. So let's just do a few short stories, a little short updates on some stories that we had talked about before. Telegram. I saw an article in the Activist Post. Telegram announced on Monday that they will hand over users' IP addresses and phone numbers in response to valid legal requests from governments around the world. That's what they said they were always doing. So that's not a change. But they are reiterating, be warned, it says, we've made it clear that the IP addresses and phone numbers of those who violate our rules can be disclosed to relevant authorities in response to valid legal requests, Pavel Durov said. He was the one who was in jail or whatever in France. I think he's an inside job. I think he was just getting debriefed over there. And I think that whole stunt was a way to pump up Telegram's subscription base so that they would qualify as a very large social media company and therefore have stricter requirements or less defenses against the EU when they request things like this. It's the article activist post article is critical of him and says he framed it as a way to fight scams and illegal content. But in most European countries, expressing ideas the authorities deem as hateful is illegal. Yeah, so I think that just pumping up Telegram may have been a way to make them come under higher scrutiny. However, I actually think I am going to start using Telegram because they have unlimited, I didn't realize this, unlimited storage. Like you could put videos on there and it will actually be stored there, which is crazy. I mean, that makes me think that it's highly subsidized business for some maybe honeypot reason. And but the encryption, I mean, certainly like one-to-one, if you seek out the encryption on one-to-one communication, I do believe you get it. Who knows, though, of course, who knows? All right, that's one update. Another one is this yacht, the Michael Lynch yacht. I've been like kind of fascinated by that a little bit because it was such a ridiculous story that this just water spout or whatever, it wasn't a water spout, it was like a weird, super, super targeted weather event flipped over this yacht that is basically unsinkable. All the crew escaped except for one, I think, chef who drowned, and 6 people died, at least 4 of whom, possibly all 6 of whom, did not drown. So the story is that they perhaps suffocated in an air bubble, but there was not, definitely for 4 and possibly for all 6. The 6 people who died were the Mike Lynch and his daughter and 2 of his business associates and their wives, if I'm not mistaken. And they were all these business associates in his Hewlett-Packard deal, it was under criminal investigation in the US. He sold a company to Hewlett-Packard that was overvalued by billions of dollars. They're still having a civil case in the UK. But his lawyer, his banker, I think it was, were killed. And then another one of his associates was killed in a car, get hit by a car, run over by a car a couple of days prior to that. So very fishy stuff. And the fact that these people died without water in their lungs made me think that they were killed first. And I thought, well, if there's any kind of legit investigation on that, you're going to find out that they were actually killed first and that the speculation that they just suffocated in an air bubble maybe is not true. Because I'm thinking 6 people in an air bubble, if they did collapse from suffocation, they would have fainted before they actually died. And if there was any water in there, they might have gotten water in their lungs then. The story sounds very strange to me. So I was wondering how they would prevent a real investigation. And then I saw this article. A few people tweeted at me. Thank you. It says this is a CNN. It's either refers to a CNN article or it is from CNN. No, it's from Gizmodo, quoting CNN. And this is how it starts. In a twist that is sure to rankle conspiracy theorists, Michael Lynch's yacht, the Bayesian, may contain watertight safes that hold super encrypted hard drives. Lynch apparently did not trust cloud services and as a result took encrypted drives with him whenever he went sailing. Because he needed everything with him all the time, the most valuable stuff he needed on his person, whatever. Those drives, in turn, may contain highly sensitive data tied to a number of Western intelligence services, CNN reports, citing 4 sources familiar with the local police investigation, none of whom is named. Therefore, we have absolutely no idea if they're credible, and there's no accountability for any misinformation. So, but yeah, that seems unlikely. Anyway, it says authorities are now trying to seize and protect the sunken hard drives. CNN reports that police are stepping up security and underwater surveillance around the sunken vessel, apparently fearing that it might be targeted by foreign governments such as Russia or China. I think it might be targeted by actual investigators trying to figure out why those people didn't have water in their lungs. And I think now they've ring-fenced it under national security guise, and the investigation can't possibly answer the question of why they had. I mean, whatever answer you're going to get is highly controlled. So, okay. Another story that I found alarming, those stories were just updates. This story is alarming. This it's speaking of ships, by the way, Japan, this is a headline, Japan flexes in Taiwan Strait, sending warship through disputed waters. The ship's movements follow China's ICBM test on Wednesday. The Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force destroyer Sazanami passed through the Taiwan Strait on Wednesday, marking the first time a modern Japanese warship has navigated this strategically sensitive waterway. So this is a game changer, I think. I mean, they're not the first ones to do it. It says Australia and New Zealand are also reported to have transited the strait as along with Japan, who is en route to multinational naval drills. China has consistently opposed foreign vessels going through the straits, which it considers part of its territorial waters. Japan's move aligns with the stance of the U.S. and other allies, asserting that the strip constitutes international waters where freedom of navigation must be upheld. Recent transits by warships from Britain, Canada, France, Australia, and Germany have also reinforced this principle. Okay, well, it is true that if you have a right and you want to keep it, you must exercise it. That is true. If you don't use it, you lose it. That's for sure. I would assume, I probably should have looked at a map. I mean, it sounds like it's a strait between the island of Taiwan, which used to be Formosa. I don't know if the island's name is Formosa or what, but Taiwan, which my parents recognized as a legitimate government of China, fair enough, is an island where the Chinese government, before the communist takeover, exiled themselves and hoping to retake China from the Reds. So China says, no, Taiwan is ours. You guys don't belong there. You're not a legitimate government. I don't know if you know the history of this. My father was horrified when Carter removed support from Taiwan, where we had guaranteed them military protection, which is weird because my father was a non-interventionist, but he was super anti-communist. Anyway, so I assume that if Taiwan claims that it's a country, actually claims that it is China, they would think they own that strait, and China would think it would own that strait. I don't know how wide the strait is, but and I don't know if straits have different rules for international waters, but you get a certain number of miles. I think it's 12 away from your borders to call it your property, your water, and then beyond that, it's international waters. So it's disputed, and these guys are flexing, as it says. But I'm worried that from different places, the Middle East, the Baltic, whatever, the Ukraine and China, that we are really marching towards World War III. And even if, as I spoke to Guido Preparata the other day, coming out Monday on your podcast platform, even if the Anglo-American Empire, not we, I have nothing to do with it, the Anglo-American Empire already controls the entire world, it doesn't mean that we will not have World War III. If you look at that Carnegie Endowment study from before World War I, from its actual early days of the Carnegie Endowment, you can Norman Dodd's famous interview with G. Edward Griffin says how refers to this, that the Carnegie Endowment wanted to move the country from individualistic in ideology to collectivist, and it wanted to know the fastest way to make such a fundamental change. And it concluded that war was that way. So when you look at war, it's not necessarily I think historically wars were about who got the tax revenue from a piece of land. That's what I think actually border disputes were about in Europe. I mean, I'm just guessing, I'm not saying I did a study of, but it's my guess. So now it's massive cultural change or march towards world government, that whether China and Russia are secretly colluding with our highest level overlords or not, a war would not be out of the question to achieve those ends. And since war changes the world, and we are about to undergo quite a lot of change from diminishment of sovereignty, of individual sovereignty, of state sovereignty, of privacy, of getting ironically, I guess, paradoxically, I think we're going to be more unified as far as policy in the world and have less mobility. So we'll actually be more stationary in our movement. That's what I think the airlines thing is about. And a lot more screen oriented, while at the very highest levels, there's more integration. So more granularization for us and more integration for them is how I see it. But a war is a very powerful cultural change agent. And speaking of war, Biden is committing 8 billion more of our dollars. How many tens of billions of dollars have we sent to Ukraine? The wrong side, by the way. Even if it was the right side, I wouldn't be on board with it. But the wrong side, in this case, I don't, Putin's not my hero. I'm just saying, in this case, we are very wrong. We did a coup against that country, and we continue to support that coup government, of course. But what we're giving that money for is, well, I was thinking about this. It's $8 billion. I think there's something like 120 million taxpayers in this country, and they pay like an average of $7,000 in taxes a year. And I'm thinking most of us pay a lot more than that in federal income taxes. But even if you were just the average taxpayer, I'd take 8 billion divided by 120 million. I think if I did the math right, it's like $66 just for this round. So I'm thinking, you're in the grocery store, and you know how they're like, give $1 to hunger. Well, I'm sure it's give $1 to the CEO of this hunger foundation, but whatever. Give $1 to hunger. Never give that. My mother's always taught me, like, no, don't even give to the second collection at mass. If you want to give to charity, you figure it out yourself. So if it said, would you give $66 to buy missiles for Ukraine? Would you do it? You think 120 million people in this country would hit the yes button? I mean, maybe. I see Ukraine flags, but $66 is a lot. And probably for most of us, we're paying a lot more than that just for this round. And Zelensky was at the UN, I think I heard this yesterday, saying, we have a right to sovereignty and territorial integrity, which is bullshit, by the way. You don't have a right to territorial integrity. If you read the Law of Nations, and like Crimea as an example, Obama used to say that we need to support Ukraine and its territorial integrity. Crimea had an almost unanimous referendum supporting reuniting with Russia. And that piece of land with those people living on it voted almost to a person to go with Russia because they speak Russian, and Ukraine had made Russian illegal as a language. So of course they're going to do that. Not to mention it's basically the San Diego of Russia. It's just a big naval port. So you have a right to self-government. That's what you have a right to. And where you live, you incorporate the geography of where the land you actually occupy, but it's very well defined geologically, geographically, easy to define as a separate state unit. And so you don't have a right to that. You do have a right to sovereignty, individual sovereignty. And I would also say, in the face of world government, I'm a supporter of national sovereignty, at least in the here and now. And I'm just wondering if Zelensky would say that same thing. He said, like everybody else. And I'm wondering if I didn't hear his whole speech. Maybe he said, I'm also here to ask for the same thing for Lebanon. He might have said that. I doubt it. But yes, so these rules change as, the talk. And I think the same thing goes for Russia, Putin, China, every place that says, we stand for the rule of law in this case. And this is how we interpret it. Of course, sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. But what the aid is for, it will be the first shipment of precision-guided glide bombs called the Joint Standoff Weapon. I have no idea what that means. It has a range of 81 miles. So Ukraine actually borders Russia. So it's 81 miles into Russia it could go. The medium-range missile gives Ukraine a major upgrade to the weapons it is using to strike Russian forces, allowing the Ukrainians to do it at safer distances. Or further inland. The bomb, capable of striking targets with high accuracy, is to be dropped from fighter jets. Oh, I guess it glides. That's why it's called a glider. Biden will not announce that Washington would let Ukraine use U.S. missiles to hit targets deeper in Russia, one U.S. official said. So, well, that's good. That's good because we can give that to them and just tell them not to use it. That's good. I feel better now. See, I actually thought that we were stepping close to World War III, but if we're gonna tell them not to use it, that's okay. And speaking of spending an insane amount of money, insane. Uh, did you know what holds? Why don't you guess? What holds the record as being the most expensive thing ever built? The world's most expensive thing ever made by humans. It cost 150 billion, $150 billion. So I was at the Sphere in Vegas seeing the Dead um, on my birthday, which would not be like a birthday present to me, but it was fun. And it was like the first time my kids were they're not 21 yet, except for the one who has Down syndrome, who was not included. He can't handle crowds. But it was like kind of like the first universally grown up thing we did. It was very fun. And we're looking around thinking, like, how much did the Sphere cost? And it was a few $1 billion to build this thing. It's very cool. So what was 150 billion? Does anyone see it? Hoover Dam, ISIS is still saying ISIS. That water thing, I don't know. Would it be the dam? Oh, yes. That's whipped cream from a cow. All right. So it's yes. Stella got it. She was saying ISIS. ISS, the International Space Station. Correct. It is the International Space Station. And it costs not only $150 billion a year, it costs $4 billion a year to maintain, and that number climbs. It was originally meant to be a laboratory, an observatory, and a factory, while offering low Earth orbit base for missions to the moon, Mars, and asteroids. Well, not all of its goals have been achieved, and by that I'm thinking maybe none of the goals. It does contribute to scientific research and space exploration, education, and cultural outreach. So, like, that's how we get astronauts to get along with each other. And then they had that Starlink thing with Boeing, which was a disaster. And they were like, thank God we had redundancies up there, because otherwise, these people we put up there for absolutely no good reason would have to come right back. Like, I don't know, but I think that they did that Starlink thing to demonstrate how important redundancies are, because they probably have triple redundancies in all of this. So they probably have systems and systems and systems. So it's like a money pit. And maybe it's really a money pit, or maybe it's a way to get money flowing in, in some nebulous direction to get redirected for other things. I think that's not that wouldn't be unprecedented. All right. So the Eric Adams thing, which was going to be like my whole story today, but I got so bogged down. And when I ended up, so this is the thing, Eric Adams is the mayor of New York. He just got indicted for, I think there were 5 counts. Conspiracy to commit wire fraud, solicit foreign contributions, and accept bribes. And there's like 5 counts different ways. So a few of the things he did, or the things that he's being charged with, is one big thing was the Turkish embassy, which was a high rise, or some Turkish, blah, blah, blah. I'm not sure if it was actually the embassy, but it was consulate. Okay. So it wasn't ready to be opened. They supposedly bribed him with like fancy trips, free travel on Turkish Air to like all the places that they fly, fancy hotel rooms or whatever, so that he would tell the fire inspector not to inspect the consulate and let the consulate open when Erdogan was coming, before Erdogan was coming to town, which is really shocking, because one of the very first things that happened after Eric Adams took office was that terrible Twin Parks fire in the Bronx where 17 people died. So that if you would waive the fire inspection, I mean, in a free society, you don't need fire inspectors, but in this society, people expect, they have an expectation. They don't think, well, I've heard about that building, I'm not going in there. They're like, well, it's in New York. It's obviously been whatever, vetted. If their vetting process didn't work, more fires like that would happen, and I'd be afraid. So that was kind of crazy. But a big thing so It seems kinda like small potatoes though, right? And then the other stuff was these straw man contributions, and it took me a really long time to figure out exactly what was going on there. So what they were doing, there are limits to how much, um, campaign contribution you can offer. So give somebody, and I know this because I remember many years ago, probably under different circumstances, because I'm sure I don't remember ever being. Oh yeah, I could have voted for the mayor. Yeah, back in the day when I lived in New York. But I just remember where I worked, they said it was really weird. Someone I worked with, a bigwig, I believe I got an email that said, "We expect you to contribute $1,000." Oh, that was the limit at the time for this thing, yeah. $1,000 to this campaign, whatever, and I probably did it, like, without really thinking or caring. I probably thought it was funny, and, like, you know, whatever. So, I did it, and I didn't get the money back, but what these guys were doing, and it was the Asian outreach. I don't know what his indictments are, but like a lot of other people have been under the microscope, indicted, arrested, pled guilty, plea bargaining. People are testifying against him. Um, One of the people had to, and people are stepping down all around. The corruption is so comprehensive. I really have like a rogues gallery going. I don't think we could hit them all, honestly, but I can try. But anyway, one thing that was happening with this Winnie Greco, she was the head of the Asian outreach or something of New York, whatever it's called. She and his other like Chinese donors, he would go to the Chinese fundraisers or whatever, and what they would do is they would get people to contribute $2,098. I guess the limit is 2,100. And some of the people, I guess at the fundraisers, they were probably legitimately giving it. But some friends of friends of friends, regular Chinese people or employees were told, write these, Chinese workers who were not like a part of the official Asian outreach or the foundations or any of that, just like people that some of these operatives, fundraisers knew, friends, family, they would say, "Hey, could you write a check to Eric Adams for $2,000? I'll just give you $2,000 of cash." And a lot of people did it. People are testifying that they did it. And I'm assuming many, many, many more people did do it. And then uh, you're supposed to sign a form that says, "I was not reimbursed for this." And one person said, "Yeah, I gave the money as a friend, but I never signed that form. That's not my signature." So that's pretty fraudulent. And that woman is under investigation, Winnie Greco, head of Asian affairs, I believe. So that's one thing. And it folds in a little bit to this other thing, but a pair of guys, I think they maybe are Pakistani or something. I don't know. Mushtaq. This all seems very tribal. You've got Turkish people, you've got Chinese people. You have Adams, who's the second African American mayor. It looks like he's actually seems pretty corrupt with a lot of his cronyistic appointees. His brother, then some guy Banks, his name was, who had already had corruption in his past, and then his brother and his whole family, his brother's fiance has got is a deputy mayor of some kind. Like, and these people are all, their phones are getting seized. One of them had said, delete the text I sent you. And they tell you not to do that. I know somebody had to do this once. They tell you not to do it. They find the text. You do that. That's a crime. You're not hiding the text. They're finding the text. It's really screwed up too. Like, be careful what you text. So the Mushtaq brothers are completely cooperating. And what they did is they wrote 6 $400 checks. And there's text saying that they were talking about, well, you can't get, or it was like money order. Don't get serial ones, go to different windows at the bank, go to different banks, whatever. But when these all came in, the campaign finance board threw up a flag because in New York, I think I understand this correctly, the first $250 of any single person's contribution to you gets matched by the city by 8 times. I think that's how it works. And I think the numbers were adding up. So if you did 6 $250 contributions, these were 400 probably to make it not so obvious, you would get like $120,000, right? I mean, $12,000. Sorry, not not 120, but 2,000 for each of the 6. So these guys, even if they gave 2,400, they're actually getting for, the mayor, whether he knew it or not, $12,000. And that's what added up. He's being accused. I saw in one article from the Post for, $10 million in campaign financing contributions. So some of the stories say, like, the amount is staggering. Other stories say the amount is, like, pathetically small, and that's what I was thinking. I was thinking his mistake was playing footsie with these small-time guys who don't run the world, instead of just going with the guys who run the world. Like, why not sell big? Why not, you know what I mean? Why not really, because they were selling influence, they were giving contracts for HVAC or, these, welfare hotels, which is super, super corrupt. And I could see it with the Chinese delegation here was big into that. But when I was growing up and the Iron Curtain fell, the Russians came in, and I couldn't believe, like, there were so many rich Russians, they hardly spoke English. And somebody told me they know, because they come from communist country, that if you can get your hand in the stream of revenue that's coming from the government, nobody's watching that. It's so easy to just pay people off for that. So they would get into, like, the nursing home business stuff where it's Medicaid, welfare hotels. So it sounds like they're still up to that, but this is a different group of people who are familiar with the communist system. And that's the problem with the communist system. So, but yeah, I think that his problem was that he aimed low. He was just this small time, and he was, obvious and stupid, and he was braggy about the whole thing, and partying with his friends. It was just stupid. I'm going to read some tweets, but one thing I thought, well, so why is anyone even really going after him? And I'm going to read some tweets that may answer that question. But of course, it's so funny because I have absolutely no faith or respect for any of these systems. But they want us to believe that, if you do something wrong, no matter how small, no matter how high up you are, the FBI has got your back. So James Dennehy, the head of the New York FBI office, said the charges send a powerful message that public service is a profound responsibility. The indictment of a sitting mayor is not just another headline. It is a stinging reminder that no one is above the law or beyond reproach. And it serves as a sobering moment for all of us to place our trust in elected officials. So the takeaway here is to trust elected officials. Yeah. And this is the moral hazard of having regulatory bodies like the FDA or whatever. They're or even truth in advertising laws. I know I sound crazy for thinking that, but if there were no truth in advertising laws, you wouldn't believe advertisements, because you would know they were all just lying. I mean, that would be that. Okay, so let's do the tweets. Dave Sparks says, so my question was, what's really up with this guy? Why did they do that? Why did they do this? Because it's my opinion that the default state is that all of these elected people are corrupt, and that anti-corruption, international or local, or any anti-corruption stuff is there to hold that sort of Damocles off over people's heads. Like, you're all corrupt. We have pictures of all of you with boys in the basement. And if you do something wrong, we're going to roll this out against you. So that's why I feel like, why are they hitting up this small town? You could say it's just racist but most of, because all the black mayors who go down are black, but, like, a lot of mayors are black. So if that's where it's like it was the Irish for a long time, or in certain places, in certain businesses, very corrupt. So I think it's a function of they're all corrupt, and whoever's in power at the time, they're the ones who are going to be the most corrupt. Anyway, Dave Sparks says, useful toady, apparently not useful enough or anymore. And this is what I think. He says, someone important didn't get their envelope, LOL. Like, that was my kind of takeaway. Like, he just wasn't. And one time he got sideways of Bloomberg. And Bloomberg still runs the world's mayors. He founded that International Mayors Consortium. There's a Black Mayors Consortium. Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if I don't know, he still was sideways, that guy. Rhonda says, in a perfect system, he would have much company with those same charges. Absolutely. Oh, and actually, it was funny because one of the quotes from the Pakistani guys, or guys who have what appear to be a Pakistani surname, said, "We're going to play this like the white boys and be straw purchasers." Something like that was one of the texts that was intercepted. Okay. I'm going to pronounce this the Thai way and say Pook. Ponies, Phuck. I haven't read a word about it, but isn't it interesting how they disgraced the mayor, New York City dictators? It seems like a distraction, a pseudo punishment to pretend that they aren't good boys who did as they were told. Fishy and zero to do with the actual MSM narrative. Not sure I understand that one. The powers that be have dirt on everyone in office. If you step out of line, then they use it. Adams did something they did not like. Yes, that's what I think, but I can't really find what it was. Some of the stuff sounds like he was fighting the good fight briefly, but I mean, apparently he was a ridiculous hypocrite. So I can't say. I don't really know. I tried. I spent so many hours, but when I could not find any deep state connection with him, just like, just bouncing around of people who were in the halls of power. He was a transit cop for 20 years, I could not find the deep state connection. And that's what I was thinking. Like he just wasn't corrupt enough. The feds say, this is Schrapp, the feds say he started taking money from Turkish officials when he was the Brooklyn borough president, which was like a decade ago, and continued to his election as mayor. Didn't Senator Goldbar Menendez have Turkish connections? Yeah. And I don't think Turkey is as controlled. It's like the one country that I don't think is fully in line, even though it is in NATO. Ism can't. Well, the only thing we know for sure is the foreign national he's taking money from wasn't from Israel or Ukraine. That's the one thing we know for sure. Man versus culture, probably something to do with Chinese influence, similar to that Hochul story about her aide a few weeks ago. Seems like a trend in New York these days. Yes, I definitely think so. I think that there is so much. And the Mitch McConnell thing with his sister-in-law drowning in that pond, like there's a lot of weird stuff like that. But then Ism Kant was saying Israel or Ukraine, but like, what is the power balance with Chinese influence, Israeli influence? Like, I don't know where the collusion comes in. Josh Stileman says, "Are you not entertained?" I love that one. He shows me a couple of headlines. One from September 15th, 2023. New York City mayor gives Sean Diddy Combs a key to the city during a ceremony in Times Square. Isn't P. Diddy in like Rikers or something right now? I think he's in a New York jail. And then, crazy New York Post picture. Mayor Adams named Master Mason in secret Freemason ceremony at the Gracie Mansion. That is crazy looking. Is it worth my pulling that up? Let me pull that picture up. It's pretty funny. Takes a minute. And that's when I start singing at you, which really nobody wants. Yeah, so those are the two pictures for those who are just listening. It's one picture of Adams with three guys with their little Masonic aprons on. And then in the other picture, he's making a little heart thingy with his hand, symbol with his hand, giving the key to the city to P. Diddy. So there you go. That's it. Thank you, Josh, for that one. Let us see if we've got a few more of the yeah, is the prosecution really just for appearances? He can't be worse than de Blasio. Elvis Presley says probably Biden and Dems going after him for past Adams comments against them. Maybe that was I was thinking that with the Bloomberg thing as well. Jin the Ninja, I think this is the Trump action moving against election fortification, the games they play. Eric Adams was elected through that ranking, forced ranking or whatever. That was kind of a weird one. But I just that election thing, I don't know. All right, so oh my gosh, let's get to some comments, shall we? Let me see if I left anything out. Yeah, there was a former building chief accused of trading favors for $150,000 in bribes. Like a lot of people in this guy's administration is going down, down, down. Yep. Okay. So the Brooklyn House of Corrections is P. Diddy's new home. Renee does want me to sing. I'm a terrible singer. I'm sorry. Occasionally, if Linda Ronstadt is playing, I can, or like Patsy Cline, I can sing along without ruining it. That's about it. It must be the pitch. I have no control over the pitch, but whatever it is. A lot of cops are Masons. That's true. I think Kamala Harris is one of those. I totally agree, Stella. And she really, that's one of my favorite drinks. It was from a movie called, I think, Blue Gardenia with whoever, Perry Mason. I forget his real name. Really good one. Come on, Monica. P. Diddy is sucking on his Polynesian pearl diver in the Tunnel Bar. Yes. That is going to be the signature drink for the first night in the Tunnel Bar. It is a very difficult drink to make. It's up there with the porn star martini, but I can do it. He's in the same cell as SBF. They are literally cellmates. That's really funny. Well, then they definitely are in the tunnel sucking on some Polynesian pearl divers. Is it called the Global Covenant of Mayors? It's not. I did just look it up, but I didn't see that one. There may be more than one for sure. Yeah, World Economic Forum has a mayor program. Franny says Adams didn't play the game smart enough. Stella says no one is above the law except for all those guys who are above the law. Is that a fact? Whipped cream from a cow says Nelson Rockefeller was a mayor during Woodstock and seeded the clouds to cause that rain delay. In the 60s is when they did that Operation Popeye, which flooded out the Viet Cong. I guess those hippies were the Viet Cong. The mudslide was historical. Yeah. So I am, by the way, right after this, I am going to interview Scott Lizard Adams and William from England. So if at the bottom of this comment section you want to put some questions for them, I will be sure to ask. And now, let's see, is that it? Is that it for our Eric Adams story? I spent so many hours trying to figure that out. And when I was like, he's not in the deep state, it's only $10 million. This guy must be stupid because he could have made so much more of this. He could have made it last forever if he didn't just want to party with his friends. So let's see. Do we think this guy is stupid? I don't know. Let's dig back into the past and find a public service announcement that he offered up to the world when he was a state senator in 2011. Now, I haven't seen this yet. So I'm going to just leave you with it. Hopefully we'll all get a good laugh. Perhaps it's not laughable. Perhaps it's sobering. All right. Let us hit it. Thank you so much for coming. This is Monica Perez, and I'm out of here.
You can look at a jewelry box. A jewelry box of this nature, maybe a simple jewelry box, but if you look through it closely, you don't know what your child may be hiding. For instance, a gun. Look at picture frames and behind them, cameras. Try to determine what's taking place. Behind a picture frame, you can find bullets. You should always, when your child brings in his popular knapsack with many different locations, look through it to see what exactly is your child carrying in addition to a book. Something simple as a crack pipe. Something simple as a baby doll. Could be just a baby doll, but also it could be a place where you can secrete or hide drugs. Run your hands over the pillows and see if you feel anything that's unusual. Like a pillow like this where the button is a perfect invitation to hide something. And I felt something bumpy. I would reach in, see what it is. Just look and see what's inside your bookcases. It could be more than just books. Perfect place to hide cocaine.